Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The time is now. We've been tweeting about this panel all week long. This is the second one, the work from home series, where we are able to focus as GenG and put together some conversations that deep dive into the college experience and also combining education and career and trying to find the best of both of those elements to support one another through a very interesting time here in our world. I want to take a second to thank everybody who's come to see this. Maybe it's your second time, maybe it's your first time. What you can expect is a very cool, lively, and honest conversation around what it means to go through life, not only getting that education or valuing that, but also turning that into a career path and maybe saying that you want to be involved in something that you don't necessarily know how, hearing from people who have maybe done what you want to do in the content creating space, and definitely in the space of, I think, owning what they want their life to be about, which is where I think the empowerment element is. My name is Raynday. I will be your host. We have an amazing panel today. And of course, this is Black History Month. This panel is called Investing in Black Creators. And the theme of this week is pretty simple, really looking at how, Black creators and Black members of the gaming and esports industry have viewed that growth and part of education and part of expanding into content, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the things to improve, and obviously the insights to be shared to all of you listening. So we appreciate you tuning in and being a part of this. Let me introduce the panel. I told you who I am. I'm going to be kind of leading it, but we're all really discussing. We've got a GenG content creator, Krystalogy. Krista is what I'm going to be calling her by. You may know her from her content as well. Full-time content creator. We also have from the GenG sales team, Khalil Keys, who recently told me he was like friends with my roommate back at UCLA. And so we got a lot more to catch up with, but I'm excited to have the panel with him. And then, of course, we got Jordan Curl, who's a content creator and a host joining, and a lot of other GenG crew in the chat. But Jordan, Krista, Khalil, welcome, guys. I'm excited to be here with you all. And maybe let's kick it off at the round table, just a little introduction, who you are and maybe how you got, I don't know, what's going on. Maybe a fun fact, it's just something that comes to mind as you introduce yourself. We'll start with Krista here.
All right. Well, as you guys know, I'm Krista, Krystalogy. I'm a variety content creator on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all the social medias you can think of. I play games, I react to movies, and I've been doing it for 8 years now. One fun fact about me, I was thinking about this yesterday because I was like, what is a fun fact? I don't know. When I was younger, I used to be a High School Musical super fan. And when I say that, I mean, like, I had bed sheets, I had pajamas, I had binders, I had it all. So yeah, that's my fun fact.
So you had your head in the game, you could say.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. You could say that.
All right. Khalil, what about you?
What's going on? My name is Khalil Keys. I am the Director of Strategic Initiatives at GenG. So I help support and build our initiatives tied to gender equity and inclusion. So that's a big passion point of mine. And I think that ties to my fun fact. I'm part of a team that started a 501c3 called Brotherhood Restored, which is a mentorship program primarily focused right now in Harlem and the Bronx. But we're really just trying to present a new vision of what's possible to youth. And I think gaming to me can be a huge part of that future. So I'm excited to discuss that a little bit today. But that's my fun fact.
That's awesome, man.
Nice.
Jordan.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Jordan. My online community knows me as MissJourdy. I have only been creating content for about the last 2 years consistently across all the platforms, like Krista said. And I also do some freelance hosting on the side as well. Have worked in a couple of different titles, started with Gears of War. So I'm really excited to be a part of this. And my fun fact, I like to tell my community that Eevee, the Pokemon, is my spirit animal. I love her so much. I love Pokemon in general and Nintendo, but I recently did a 500-piece puzzle with all of the evolutions in under 2 hours. So I love.
Wow.
Nice.
You must know what they are.
Yeah, I love puzzles too.
That's awesome. Well, clearly a diverse mix of people representing different areas. I'm Raynday. I'm also a GenG content creator, and I've been in YouTube for 5 years, but I grew up a soccer player, and I grew up, really competing as an athlete most of my life and training for that throughout my upper education at UCLA and my high school education in Calabasas at Viewpoint, and just grew up in a very creative family. So it's kind of cool. I never knew that out of athletics would be gaming as like kind of my outlet for my career, but I did definitely know it would be something creative once athletics stopped. And I'm kind of really happy that it landed in this space, because I just feel that it's just such a good fit for me. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are athletes or who just love gaming, and you realize it's a great fit, and you're just trying to figure out how to get there. And to me, that's kind of where I want to kick the panel off, because we've all, I think, gone to school, been educated in some way or the other. And I don't think we went to gaming school. I don't think any of us went to video game high, and we are in somehow the gaming world and the industry. And a lot of people see that as like, I remember when I wasn't in the industry, I was like, how do I get in? It seems impossible. Like, I don't know any clear path to get there. So I guess to start with Krista and maybe go around the horn, like, where did you go to school? What did you study? What was your kind of like, I guess, education background? And then how did you suddenly decide and start getting involved in gaming while you were, in your education? Like, what kind of clicked for that? How did it turn, and how did you end up kind of getting on that path from just a traditional education?
Okay, so I originally actually started content creation when I was in high school. I started making YouTube videos here and there just for fun. And eventually I made a little bit of money off of that. I mean, nothing crazy, but good enough for a high schooler.
Oh yeah.
From there, I still worked part-time jobs, did my high schooling, and I saw something I wanted to do with my future. But at the same time, I was worried, like, people always tell you, well, that's not a real job. Like, you got to go to school. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school, and I'm going to try to study something that's similar to it. And I did that by studying public relations. I'm like, okay, this is kind of like content creation, handle social media and stuff like that. And if I can't do my own, I can at least get in the gaming industry with this somehow. Um, so while I was in college, I, still did my thing with my Twitch channel, streaming here and there when I had the time, and just slowly building that up as I was in school. For me, school wasn't really that, what's the word? Needy, where like I had a lot of work to do. Since public relations, I felt was a easier degree to obtain for me, other than like some science where I probably would be like busy 24/7 studying. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I used that just streaming and stuff. I didn't have a part-time job at the time. And then around my junior/senior year, I did internships, which did take up a little bit more time, but I just streamed during the evenings. I basically didn't really have a social life, to be honest. I didn't go out. I spent majority of my time school, internship, or streaming. And then finally, when I graduated, I was like, I do want to make content creation my thing. I was at a sort of steady area financially, with both having an internship that was paid and having streaming that like brings in money. So I started doing YouTube more and building my other social media platforms. I got with GenG, and I was able to be financially stable and leave my internship. I was like, bah, and I did my thing. Now I'm full-time content creator, and I have been for 8 months, and it's
That's
going really
great.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Great
But
story.
making that jump definitely was scary.
Mm,
Especially since, with most things, you don't really know how
right.
it can go. Like, you always have that thought in the back of your head, oh, what if everyone hates me tomorrow and that, they don't want to
Yeah.
support me anymore. But I decided to ignore that thought. Like, I'm young, I don't have kids, don't have anyone who depends on me. Like, if there's a time to make this work, it's now. So I made the jump.
Before, it's like, is there a part of you that like didn't believe that for a second, then you confronted that belief? Because I run across a lot of people like, oh man, what if I don't make it? And then I'm just kind of, I respond and I go, what do you mean? You're like, you're 15. What do you mean you don't make it?
Yeah,
Like, what do you got to lose?
exactly.
And they're like,
Like,
oh, wait, you're
that
right. I
was
mean,
that was something I was like, that I had a battle, like, oh, like, what if it doesn't work? I'm like, I'm only 22. Like,
wait a second.
what do I have to lose? If something bad happens, I have a wonderful family that'll support me and like take me in. So just do it, If you have the means, if you don't have those dependents on you and you have a dream, it's okay to chase it. And if it doesn't work, then that's okay too. You still have your life ahead of you.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. What
Mhm.
about you, Khalil?
Yeah, so I think again, I'm just inspired about hearing the stories of different content creators because my path's a little bit different. Similar to you, Raynday, I played sports growing up. Football was my favorite, and ended up playing at Yale, and that was a great experience for me. I think I learned and grew a lot from the experience, and was able to continue to pursue a passion point. I definitely gamed a little bit on the side, but it wasn't something that was for me even feasible as a career to even know that landscape. But I actually started working in professional sports right out of school. So I worked at Major League Baseball headquarters in corporate partnerships. And I majored in political science, and I think a big driver for me in wanting to be in the sports industry was to really be able to use sports as a catalyst for unity, as a catalyst for
Mhm.
change. So bringing people together from really different backgrounds. And I think at looking at my own experience, I realized that sports was such an important piece for me to view a different option of what's possible. And so I think I was excited to be able to play, but it was very clear early on that I wasn't going to be able to play at the next level. So I think being able to still be tangentially aligned to sports through my career was something that I really enjoyed, but I wanted to find a way to be able to specifically engage youth to talk about equity and empowerment through the lens of sports. And I think my way of getting into esports and gaming was pretty unique in that I wanted to continue to seek what was new and what was next. And I started to see this convergence
Mhm.
of both my personal life and my professional life. On the professional side, I was working with Legend, so continued to try to build new corporate partnerships. And I think brands are constantly trying to find what's the new foray, and so many are interested in the gaming space. And I remember seeing a press release around what GenG did with Team Bumble, and around the whole concept of building an all women's team for Fortnite, and saw that they performed well. Saw the press around that, and I think I was inspired to know that this is a space with a lot of growth, and I really was intrigued to be able to get into that. And then on a personal level, as I mentioned, I started the mentorship program, and we're working with the kids, and I remember so much of the time they were obsessed with the games. They didn't talk, they didn't text on cell. Like, that's how they communicated, is through their games. And
Yeah.
it was 2K, it was Call of Duty, and I realized if we can use this as a space to bring them to an awareness of, like, hey, there actually are careers that you can have through gaming and through esports. That's a way to kind of align with my passion point. So it's been a pretty amazing journey for me to just see the alignment of all these different paths on both a personal and professional level. I mean, I think Gen G has been the culmination of that.
Khalil, I could call you a student athlete, but I might have to call you an athlete student because you went to Yale. You just play football anywhere else.
Right.
Brother coming out from Yale, like, threw that out the corner. And but I do want to say, as an athlete, like, I've noticed there's a lot that comes through as a gamer that and esports that relates to my athletic background. That lessons that I've learned throughout the course of my discovery in my life, I have really been able to apply to stuff that shows up just making content. Like, have you noticed that in your realm with strategic partnerships, or in the realm of your, awareness of esports, like stuff from your sports background, and your education in that way kind of playing a role?
Yeah, I think just within the overall kind of work and corporate setting, I think the idea of being on a team and everyone having a
Mhm.
role to play within that, I think is super important. So I know even for me throughout my career, there were certainly ups and downs. There was a time of being injured. There was a time, a significant amount of time where I wasn't the guy per se, but I had a role to play. And I think that there was communication that was necessary. I think there was having a positive attitude. I think it was so many things that ultimately, my name may not be on the stat sheet, every time and every time that we're trying to win games, but I think I can play a role in our team's success, and I think that translates to what we're doing
Mm,
within the business context. And then I think what I've seen from just the content creator side is there's so much of an emphasis on balancing all of these different things that you're trying to do. And as a student athlete, you have your demands with school, you have your demands with your craft, and you're trying to increase your speed, and there's weight training, and there's all of these things you're trying to balance. So I think having the ability to do multiple things at once um, definitely translates to what some of the things that I'm doing now. within the corporate setting. I think that's been a helpful experience that I've had.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. And Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, so for my journey, I originally went to uni to learn how to develop video games. So
Wow.
I got my bachelor's degree in computer science. While I was there, I did a couple of different types of internships because I wanted to get exposure to more than just the development, I guess, side. So I did an internship at like NBC Sports Group with their engineering department. I worked with the Space Center in Houston doing some tech there in CS. So I kind of bounced around to get as much exposure as possible. And while I was also studying, I needed a job to help pay for school. So the sports information department actually had some openings. So I started kind of doing some sports journalism on the side.
Wow.
Always watch sports, love basketball so much. So I was also covering, the sports while I was studying and doing computer science. It was a very difficult degree, 5-year program. And then I said, I think I want to learn. I know all this tech stuff. I know how to program. I want to try to see if maybe I could translate that into journalism as well and covering journalism in a way with sports. So I went ahead to Northwestern. And while I was there, I was originally studying again sports media, but then I said I found this. I discovered Twitch in 2017, and I was watching the League of Legends stream, Afromu specifically, and I was like, "Wow,
Yeah.
I love the way he plays. Like, I want to be a support character." But then I started noticing the casters and everything, and I said, "Wow, that's another realm of gaming I could be a part of." So I have all the skills in coding and stuff, but I could also try to be a journalist and be a reporter and a host. So I pursued that, and while I was at Northwestern, so I worked with, like MLG, Gears of War, like I said.
Yeah.
Um, actually have had the chance to interview some Halo players and stuff. And toward the end of my time in uni, I did an internship at MLSC, not MLSC, MSC out in Monumental Sports and Entertainment in DC. And I finished that internship, no job, so I came back home to Dallas. And that's how I got my first start with the Mavericks and worked my way up from like literally rolling t-shirts at basketball games, trying to convince people about Mavs gaming and this new league that they're coming up with for NBA 2K. And, sometimes you have to start at that point. I just have to make that statement. Like, you have to start small to work your way up a lot of times. And through a lot of hard work, it's where you want to be. So, worked my way up to start helping them with content creation. I love to edit. I've been doing editing for
Wow.
a while. So that's kind of my technical skills. I guess I could say I've kind of touched a lot of arenas, but my technical skills in editing, I love different programming and stuff like that, but I love to edit more than anything else. So that's been my whole stake in esports. And now I guess I could also on content creation through that while I was at Northwestern. That's when I also started streaming a little bit. So I do it on and off, only like 4 days a week, definitely not full time. So I guess I consider myself an industry creator because I have a full-time job also part-time. So
Yeah.
content creation. So that's kind of my journey in esports and why I love working in gaming so much. So
That's
mhm.
awesome. You've probably created more of a sports and esports connection than most of us here. You really have honed in on that, and that's awesome to see. Because I mean, I love basketball too. I can't say I'm a Mavs fan. I'm a Lakers fan from
We
LA.
forgive you.
So I forgive you. And but I appreciate that you basketball is a connection point. I guess like Jordan, you just did so much, and you switched careers,
Mhm.
and I want to get into this element of like the scary choice or the unknown choice, right? Because I think
Yeah.
if you didn't do that stuff, you couldn't be doing what you're doing now. If you had to make a moment where there was an unknown that you stepped into, where you kind of chose yourself and your future potential versus what you saw right in front of you, right now.
Absolutely.
And what was that like?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think honestly the initial decision to pivot just to focus on esports while I was in grad school, my family kind of was like, "What is professional video gaming?" Like I spent a lot of my time with like friends and family educating them on what professional gaming is. And but deciding, even hearing from professors sometimes, like, what is that? Why do you want to cover it? Now, obviously, it's only been 2 years since I was in school, but that is not a long time at all. So it
Yeah.
just shows you how far esports has come into like more mainstream for more folks. But I think and Crystal was sort of hitting on it as well. I think you don't get to where you want to be without taking a risk.
Mm.
And your complacency will always hold you back. Like when you're too comfortable with where you are
Oh
and
yeah.
you don't take that leap of faith, you won't grow. Because I don't know any of the major celebrities. Like I think of Oprah, like taking a jump into talk show radio. You have to put your neck out there, and if you don't take a chance, you'll never get to where you want to be. So that's kind of how I look at life. And to Krista's point is, being young and like just go out and do it. Obviously, you have to evaluate where you are in life, but right now, while we're young, like just take a chance, and it might yield dividends for you. So.
Krista, I'd already touched on that, but Khalil, like that point, everyone's kind of said something to except you, like that element of when you're young, go for it. Is this just kind of something that it's kind of blanket statement for you to anybody that's asking you about it? Or, I mean, what was it the same thing in your mind when you said, I got plenty of time, even if esports isn't the next hot thing, like I could backtrack this? What was going on in your mind when you thought about it?
Yeah, so I think I definitely echo Jordan's comments that you have to really take that leap of faith. For me, there was certainly some level of comfort. I had been working in the sports business industry for 5 years, and I think a lot of professional sports organizations are trying to figure out how they can develop an esports strategy, how to try to adapt to that. But I think getting into a really gaming endemic company that had that as the focal point. Again,
Mm,
I played casually, but there was certainly a lot of things that I needed to learn. So I think I came in really just wanting to be a sponge and take in all the perspective that I could. But I think one of the things that was really exciting to me about the opportunity with just GenG and what we're doing was the emphasis on education more broadly, and how
mm,
gaming can be used as a platform to really help advance STEM education, and how we can talk about different career opportunities. So I think really leaning into that was part of what the role I wanted to take. But there was certainly that aspect of this is unfamiliar to me. There was certainly that aspect of what our friends and mentors are going to say when I get into this space, and the
mm.
perceived kind of unknown of it, and the fact that it is still a developing industry. So I'm getting to the point now where I think there's that level of comfort. And it's funny. I think a lot of people when I first got in was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because we're in a pandemic. But what happens when this is over? And I had to really do my due diligence to say this was actually growing
Right,
significantly before it even this all happened. That may have
right.
accelerated it, but yeah, I definitely share a lot of those feelings of a little bit of discomfort, but needing to step out of your level of comfort for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know if this was to me when I first got into the space and gave it was very much a like kind of really hard to explain to anyone that wasn't really close to me. I mean, I kind of had to say I'm going to give this a couple years on the side to run with before I start telling people I'm a YouTuber, before I start being like I'm a content creator, you know, I mean, I think it took me probably 4 years before I got a big, like, check to where my parents' eyes opened at this and said, "Whoa, like, you are doing something that is like, this could be a career," right? Like, when that happened, and even in I mean, I had moved to Georgia, I'd been in the game industry for 3 years, like, part of my journey is kind of being inside a game company and seeing how it balances work and patches come out and characters are designed and having those meetings constantly while being an esports caster there, but I remember that there were a lot of hard parts along the way too. And we're kind of talking about this, like how it ended up. But for people who are out there, I think a lot of the focus is, but what happens when it goes wrong? And that's like, I think an opportunity right now that I'd love everybody to share their experience on. Um, and I want you to take this lens of what happens when it goes wrong or some of the things you might you ran across that were difficulties for you. And that could be about anything. It could be about, you know, your specific life, like your parents said something. It could be about just the general industry. It could be about being a Black creator or a diverse creator and some of the things you ran across that people may not expect or that was part of your experience. But I want to kind of toss it around again to say, what happens when it's not going great yet, but you're still in the middle of actively pursuing it? And how do you get through that? And, you know, maybe Jordan, we can start this one. We'll go back around the other way.
Yeah, so I think it's a great question because I feel like sometimes people say like don't worry about a plan B, but I think you to an extent should still have a plan B in case, especially in like content creation, like for example, like when Mixer shut down, everything like that, some
Yeah,
creators lost their entire following, so
that's
you
true.
you have to spread out if from a content creation perspective, you do still have to spread out your like your audience, your content, make sure you're creating on different platforms. But in terms of my life personally, I would probably say my most difficult thing sometimes, because like in my current job, like I juggle a lot of parts, and like social media has just been very draining sometimes, especially last year, 6 months ago in June during the
Mhm.
George Floyd protests and everything. It was very straining. So even just managing a brand account, like knowing when to step away, it's okay
Mm,
to just walk away, reevaluate, look at where your mental health is, seeing if you're doing well. Because if you're not mentally where you have to be, you can't give yourself to your job, your community,
mm.
or whatever you're doing. So I would say, like, taking the time, like, figuring out what gives you energy and putting yourself into that before you put yourself back out for the world to see.
Did you you know, I think this is actually you brought up a really good point that I'm pretty sure all of us felt at that time last year where, we're in a public space in some ways, and there's stuff that is bigger than, you know, making a video or getting an
Yeah.
email out happening all the time. And in my experience, I felt like I was kind of it wasn't damned if you do, damned if you don't, but I felt that there were going to be some elements of people liking what I do, whether I say nothing or whether I say something. And that was a difficult thing mentally, I think, all last year to get through and still kind of find the line of how I wanted to behave and what I wanted to say and how I wanted to, you know, kind of talk about these things. I mean, Khalil, did you feel that? Krista, what was your experience just, you know, when the world was kind of in that place and there was a lot of protests and obviously George Floyd? How did you manage that from a personal level with your content and with what you were doing at work?
Uh, I'll go first. Well, in terms of like how it affected me, social media, like just going on it every day during that time period, seeing all of like not only like the nice things and inspiration things that people were saying, but like also the bad things that people were saying that like
Mm,
popped up on my feed as well. It definitely just took a beating on my mental. Like I didn't want to be on social media. I didn't want to
mm.
be on Twitch because racists come out the cut when things are going on, and like I don't want to like deal with
True,
that
yeah.
in my chat because like it happens. And I feel like especially when we take these moments on social media and like Black History Month to uplift like Black voices and stuff like that, we get hit back even more by people
Mhm,
who want to like tear us down, and on social media and comments. I mean, if you look at Twitch replies in on like their posts about Black History Month, like you see how in the
mm,
gaming industry there's still that like white supremacy that lingers. And
mm,
like just like I don't know, it feels bad to know like the community that you're in has that part of it as well.
mm,
And like especially when you want to be accepted in the community and like have fun with everybody, and especially also that I'm a woman and like
mhm,
that piles onto that as well. um yeah, it can be a lot, and you just got to take your time away when you need to. And it's okay to take breaks. It's especially when such heavy things are going on, it's okay to take breaks. And it's okay to also wait to say something too, because like we got to gather our thoughts. We all process things differently. We've all been through different experiences. I'm both Black and Hispanic, so like immigration bothers me too. So like it's like a whole bunch of things that can get to us. So when you need some time, take it, and don't let them tear you down. Live your best life. Screw them.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I think for me, I mean, so much of this resonates. I think I had been in a place where I had internalized a lot, whether that came from being an athlete or being in a corporate setting. I think there was so much of me that had muffled my voice, that wasn't able to speak out against what I believed. And I think there is an extent to which, those who know me know what I'm about. They know that I'm an advocate for social justice. They know that I've really dedicated my life to trying to address this. I think in light of it being at the forefront to the extent that it was, it inspired a lot of people to use their voice. And I think it brought an awareness to it to an extent that I haven't seen in my lifetime. And I think that's one of the things that excites me about this space and about a lot of just creators that, we've worked with and you yourselves, is that you are able to use your authentic voices. Yes, there's going to be naysayers, there's going to be people who say negative comments, but you put yourself out there at the forefront to really tell a message that is going to have an impact. And I think that there's such an authenticity to that. And frankly, I'm inspired and moved by that within my own circle. So I think what my response has been is doing things like this, putting my voice out there, really making a stance for what I believe. And I think there's less of a care about the external perception around that. And I don't think I would have really grown in that way outside of the context of this space. And I think it's going to be a continual journey for me. But I realized that I was silent in a lot of ways prior to this. So
Yeah.
that's been my big takeaway.
Yeah. The noise, not the noise, but really, I think the volume of how many words and how many images we saw really almost highlighted the silence that sometimes we can realize, at least I realized in that moment, it's possible to have over some of these things. I've sometimes glossed over saying things because I said, okay, they're just going to hear it and move on. And I'm not trying to get involved in this, like, thing with these, even the two people who are really hateful or upsetting me just start going hard in my comments. I'm just not trying to have that tonight. So I won't say something. But I think it almost created this avalanche where it was unavoidable. It was unavoidable. It finally kind of put everybody's habits to like, whoa, I probably wouldn't have said something, but I feel like I just can't. I got to say something. And that I think was definitely a turning point. I think you guys are right. And I love what Jordan, you said as well. Fill your cup essentially and fill it all the way so that people can take from the overflow of all the great stuff you've got going on. But you're not giving of that essence of who you are to the point where then you got nothing left at the end of the day. And, I found that last year was a lot. I probably worked more than I've ever done in that last year through esports events and stuff with content creation and sponsorships and my own content and just family and moving. But I will say that this year I had a real commitment to do something different. And I've been, this last several months, like I was like, you know what, I'm waking up, I'm having time for myself. I'm working out. I'm not even looking at my email until I do all of those things. And it's been a shift because I had to confront okay, what happens if someone emails me and they need me? And I've just kind of gone like, nothing is going to be that detrimental that they can't reach me at noon and it had to be at 8. If they really need to reach me, they could have reached me last night. They can call me. They know how to get to me. So I'm just going to really focus on myself. And it's been now almost like 35, 40 plus days of doing that. And I've really started to find that habit built of kind of, okay, where's my value system? It's like, get Evan going, take care of me, and then I can help take care of the world around me. And I've noticed already a huge shift in this year. And if there's any things you guys want to touch on that you've done that are active things you might be doing to take care of yourself in this climate or that you found worked, feel free to share it. And we got some other great topics too. So if there's nothing there, but if you guys have something, that you've started doing or just a way to kind of, support yourself, let people know.
I can chime in a little bit. I think what you touched on is important. It's just that wholeness within yourself. And I think, for me, I actually, moved across the country amidst all of this. But I've been able to just spend a lot of quality time with my wife, with my family, just really reset on those aspects. I think I put so much into just the day-to-day grind. And that's still important, but I think I'm working better, more efficiently, more effectively now that I am prioritizing those relationships and things,
Mm.
just, having bonfires with my dad out in the backyard and having, in-depth conversations, little things like that I think I took for granted. I'd been away from home across the country really from my family for over 10 years. And so I've just been able to really maximize that and take in every moment and realize that that isn't something that should be taken for granted. That's made me, I think, much more effective, but just happier in general. So I do think that self-care and family and realizing what's most important is super, super relevant in these times.
I love that, man. Relate a lot to that for sure. If you have something, was that Krista or was that Jordan?
I didn't make a noise, but
Okay.
I do have something I was thinking of real quick.
Okay.
I invested in an editor to help me edit YouTube
Oh,
videos because I used to do it all by myself, which was a lot of time. So now I have more time to myself.
that's
So
awesome.
investing in yourself, it's a good thing to do.
So I feel like that's a great I think that's a great thing too. I mean, I feel like content's just generally been an investment of myself. Like one of the cool things last year for me is that I had invested in two big things. I invested in a 30-day seminar with my cousin that we went, and it
Mm.
has nothing really to do with gaming. It's really about presenting. And it's almost like something that a lot of Fortune 500 executives might take if they're giving a lot of presentations all over. And 30 days in a row in Chile, Santiago. And I remember I had to put up like $2,000, and I was like, not really any income. It was all my credit card. The training was $4,000, but luckily my uncle covered it for me. And I went with my cousin, and that had been on my credit card alongside my computer I bought to make content for like 3.5 years. And I finally paid it off like last January, which and I'm telling you, the bills were like $400-$500 a month from all of those accumulated costs, and they were just killing me. And I really, it was such a cool thing to see that investment actually pay off. And I think that's one of the cool things about being a content creator. You're really just saying, I'm investing in Krista, I'm investing in Jordan, I'm investing in what Khalil's got to offer, and then that's hopefully going to get me where I want to go. It's a little exciting, I think, and I guess that's where I kind of want to shift into this bigger conversation of what you had brought up earlier, Khalil, youth and people who are looking at getting into this. Not everyone can put a couple $1,000s on a credit card, especially if you're a kid. You can't necessarily invest in yourself. You may not even have enough money for a microphone. Luckily, we're in the internet. There's probably a free way to do anything, even if it's at just some basic level. But I want you to mention some of the stuff that you're doing with youth and why you feel it's so important that people who are young and look at gaming and look at content as a viable and possible way to, whether it's become financially stable, like Krista was talking about, whether it's become financially free and take it to a high level of content creating, but knowing that this is an opportunity that doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, or where you came from. It matters on kind of what you do. And talk a little bit about the importance of kids knowing that. And I'd love everyone to kind of, give their 2 cents on what that message is to young people looking to get into content creation.
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because there's already that existing interest and passion point from the kids. So like I mentioned, the schools I'm working with right now are in Harlem and the Bronx. And initially we had just started with traditional sports, football, basketball. We take the kids to the Knicks game every year. And we take them to the game, but we also take them to the suite and we have them meet the corporate executives. We teach them a little bit about the analytics behind basketball. And I think their eyes open up to say, wow, there's all of these back end things behind this sport. Like if you aspire to, play at Kentucky and get a scholarship and play in the NBA, that's great. But that's not going to be the reality for most of these kids. But for them to know that you can still pursue this passion in a tangential way is awesome. But I think gaming is even more expansive than that. And I think we're just now peeling back the layers of what that can mean. And I think that there's ways in which it can be really incorporated into education. We've talked about STEM. I think there's ways, there's community, there's leadership, but then there's also this idea of really elevating your voice and being a streamer, like that is powerful. So I think we've just, within my program, started to scratch the surface of what this could look like. But I'm definitely, curious to hear from all of you of what that can look like to really showcase these as being possible and as being viable opportunities. Because I've really leaned into just the corporate aspect and being kind of behind the scenes operational, which is a tremendous pathway, I believe. But I think even within playing in and of itself and really broadcasting that is another angle that I love to really share with the students that we're working with.
That's great, man.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say that I think it comes down to really at an early age making sure young people are also exposed to more elements and aspects of the industry, to your point, Khalil, because it's like my mom, when I was growing up, she had us subscribe to Game Informer magazine, but at the time when I was a kid reading it, I never realized that, oh, I could be a gaming journalist, like just by reading it, like, growing up, like I love the reviews and stuff like that, but I didn't realize that until I was almost, in graduate school, so I might have had a whole different career, so making sure you like expose kids and young people at an early age, and especially girls, I think
Yeah.
more and more women are in gaming. I think I was looking at Statista the other day, and it says about 40% of women now make up the gaming industry, but you don't see that necessarily represented in the professional side. More
Mhm.
girls can compete too, so I think it comes down to exposure and making sure, because gaming is an expensive hobby at the end of the day. Like PCs are not cheap, and these are consoles, and you see how these scalpers are going. So I think you have to expose, but also provide the resources, like Khalil was saying, to have diverse
Yeah.
students and kids involved.
And I was thinking about, like, you're saying you teach them like the corporate end of like getting into gaming, but like even if they don't want to be a content creator, they could do editing or like digital art and stuff like that. Like my editor, she helps me a bunch, and she has like just a creative eye and love for gaming. And then people who make the thumbnails for people, like there's a need for that too. So like I feel like there's so many different roads they can go down, even if it's not just like being a content creator themselves.
I mean, I look at that too, and I say, when I look at, like, I had a background in film and story and writing and acting and uh like all of those things are huge. I mean, that's all really a huge part of being a content creator as well. Understanding how to work with media, tell a story, present what you want to present to effectively enhance that story to people watching it. You know, pacing, timing, like these are things that you probably could take a skill you've learned from anything in your life, throw a dart at the board, and find that skill apply to some form of gaming and content creation, which is an awesome thing. And I think one of the big points I think you were one of you were making. I kind of forgot. There's so many great points, but exposing people to this, exposing the youth. I think it was Jordan, and the opportunity to see, like, I could be a gaming journalist. I'm reading Game Informer. People like this exist. How do I get into that job? Kind of having that show up for people to say this is possible. So I think that's a great kind of look at how all of this is, and I think just really looking at how actually collaborative the gaming space is and how so many different actual elements of sales or traditional business, competitive sports, coaching, all those things actually are a part of gaming. I feel like there's really no place someone can not find a home in kind of the gaming world, which is really exciting. I kind of want to move into some individual questions because we're getting towards the back end, and maybe leave a little bit of time for Q&A. And I also want to mention that there's been some very in the chat, some very active, people commenting, and I love that. What I want to mention to you is that there's some hoodies being given away from GenG, and we are going to be taking into account your participation. So people who have been chatting, who have been involved, there's a good chance you may be getting one of these hoodies at the end. So keep it up throughout the rest of the stream and keep supporting. Ask some questions. We may have a chance to go ahead and kind of curate them towards the end. But I want to get a couple of individual questions for Khalil and for Jordan, and for Krista. And I think, Jordan, one thing that I kind of want to talk to you about personally is, you mentioned what you'd like to see. But I want to kind of give you this bigger picture of what do you want to see more of in the gaming industry? Maybe in the next 5 years. You talked about several things, but if you could hone it down, what would you really like to see as a vision for more of in the gaming industry, whether it's women coming to the forefront, it's exposure for youth? I mean, what really to you says this is would be a mission of mine to hopefully see this to fruition?
Yes, I think you said it. I want to see more women. I want to see more women, not just in competition, excuse me, but also on the business side. I think that's so important. I was on a panel the last week, and we had a whole panel of women just talking about, making sure girls and women are involved. And I actually had a chance, as a part of yesterday was National Girls and Women in Sports Day.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I had the chance to interview some of the women in the community we participate in with Mavs Gaming, the 2K community, and they all talked about how important their sisterhood has been to helping them get to a place where they're even comfortable continuing to compete against the guys, because sometimes it does
Mm,
get so toxic for them. And I just think that would be, if I had to say anything, that's one thing that I would love to see is more girls and women involved in the space, and not just again from competition, but also on the business side, because hosting, doing broadcast, more girls,
yep.
just in general, because we have the knowledge too.
Absolutely. I cannot reiterate that more. It is such a great thing to see. And one of the things I like about Apex and Respawn and EA is their broadcast teams are
Yeah.
intentionally very diverse. And I'm really proud to be a part of it. And they're paving the way. They're being very, very avant-garde for it. It's almost like a must. And it's great to see that change, as well as the way GenG has been doing it with the content creators they're
Yeah.
supporting.
Hmm.
Speaking of that, Krista, before I go back to Khalil, I wanted to kind of ask you, you've done it all, balancing work, balancing school, taking a degree. I studied psychology, which I also did because I'm like, this could apply to a lot of things. You did public relations, that can apply to a lot
Hmm.
of things. You did all this, you're still working part-time. For someone who's going to do that themselves, maybe some people in the chat are in school, they're thinking about becoming content creators. How do you know when's the right time to make the switch? And what advice would you give them on how to balance it all and when to finally say, okay, now I can start really pushing this towards this being my career?
Hmm. Well, for me, I knew I could make the switch when I was able to cover my rent, cover my food, and like not be scraping by after handling those things. But like also, it could be different for each person. Like you could still be living at home and like, maybe helping your family or whoever you're living with and be able to do a full time. It's just like at a place where you're not living paycheck to paycheck. You just don't ever want to get caught living paycheck to paycheck. Like that always sucks. You want to have money to still invest more in content or,
Mhm.
um, go out and treat yourself and or save, which is
Yep.
also really important because as a content creator, you don't get health insurance or a 401k or anything like that. So you are giving those things up by not taking a full-time job. And like for me, I need to, start saving myself on my own initiative for my retirement. I need to, well, I'm on my mom's health insurance, so I'm kind of good for now. But but when that comes around, I'm
Yeah,
gonna need
yeah.
to think about those things. But I think also like with my youth and like I said, not having any dependence, like it was easier for me to say, all right, let's do this. Because I'm like lucky to have all those factors
Yeah.
contributing. I can't really speak to like maybe if you're older and have more things to worry about. You just, with balancing, you can pick a thing. I feel like honestly, if you are going to content creation, just start with YouTube instead of like start live streaming first, especially
Mhm.
since live streaming isn't as this discoverability isn't really there. YouTube, you can post that video and like it's doing its thing while you're doing other things. Like live streaming
Mhm.
definitely takes up more of your time when it comes to like you having to be there present while you can work on a video, post it, and like move on with your life. So if
Mhm.
you're like trying to get into it, maybe you should start with YouTube, so you can have a little easier process than trying to balance live streaming because that's a lot.
Oh, yeah. I started that same way with YouTube, and then I would do a weekly live stream. And
Mhm.
me, I thought, well, I post a video and I get 1,000 views. That means I'm gonna have 1,000 viewers on my live stream.
If only, if
And me and
only.
my 7 viewers would hang out for, 2 hours every, Wednesday, but it was a good time,
Mhm,
and really, it did create a foundation for some people who are still live stream viewers now of mine, and
mhm.
it didn't make it so that it was, like, this huge cost of time, which is really the key. Right now, you're trying to invest to free up your time,
Yeah.
and when that starts rolling, you can then say, "Okay, now, it's giving me enough financial freedom to take this away maybe and have more time to do some things that I do."
Mm.
Great advice. Really just saying, I think,
Yeah.
listen to yourself, listen to your own circumstance. Don't do anything
Mhm.
rash. Um, cool. Well, thank you for that, Krista. And Khalil, I wanted to talk to you because you're more on the business side of things. And I want to know if someone's interested in gaming, but maybe they've got a more traditional background and they just don't see content for them. And this information that we're giving them is not going to make them suddenly think they're going to be a content guru, but they still love gaming. Like, what's the way to get in your eyes? How's the best place to start looking for jobs, whether it's in esports or it's in more traditional gaming jobs, whether at a company like an esports org, an industry like as that's in the game development industry. What would your suggestion be for people looking to take that path?
Yeah, so I think for me, one of the first pieces was just kind of knowing my why, knowing my passion point. I obviously knew that there was a tremendous amount of growth, but I was really enthused about the education and diversity components within gaming. But I knew that that in and of itself wasn't enough, nor was a passive interest. So I think from there was a lot of learning. One of the things I've been trying to do is just build more of a social profile, connect with people that I knew in the industry to just learn the ins and outs because it's complex as you start to learn between even just the difference between competitive esports and gaming more broadly, what it means to be a streamer, some of the game developers, like there's a lot of nuance to it. So I think the first part is just starting to figure out what your primary interest is within the broader
Mhm.
industry. I think leveraging the network that you can develop within that is great. Oftentimes, it's much easier to have an inroad when you do have a connection with someone who's in the space versus trying to start a cold conversation and they may not know you, especially because it is kind of like the next gold rush and everyone wants in. So I
Mhm.
think really being intentional about who you reach out to and learning and really trying to provide value to that conversation as well as you start just the early discussions within that, I think is really important. Because often there aren't a lot of open job postings. It's not, things don't often just appear. But then also from a corporate perspective, we're often doing one-off projects. We're working with streamers and creators who have a certain passion. Maybe they're into fashion, or maybe they're into food or music, or what's the intersection between their gaming experience and something that brand wants to support. So I think there's a lot of different touch points within the broader industry. So identifying what that is, leveraging your network and connecting with people within your network, and just continuing to be a student, because I think this space is evolving rapidly.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can relate to the networking element of things as well. I mean, you person, and I think that's kind of for me. I've always just tried to be above board and good with people and just be honest and be myself. And I felt like that's been one of my better business tactics that I've seen so many people around me fail at, unfortunately, which is like, it's really amazing because a lot of people think it's just super talented people only get this, people who are just the absolute best. And I think like maybe a misconception about the gaming industry is that everyone here is doing something you couldn't do. It's not necessarily the
Mhm.
case. It's not like someone couldn't say the stuff I'm saying. Maybe I'm good at saying it. Maybe Chris is good at doing that. Maybe Jordan, maybe Khalil have their expertise. But the thing is, people want to work with Jordan and they want to work with Chris. They want to work with Khalil. If you're someone they don't want to work with, and maybe you're looking at it like it's all about talent, I don't care who I burn to get that opportunity. You're missing out on a big part of what this gaming space is about, which is a lot of camaraderie and a
Yeah.
family. And I think a lot of people miss out on that. I was going to save a little bit of time for some questions. Now, I don't know if anyone has questions in the chat. If you do, feel free to throw something out that might be interesting. But we are kind of wrapping up with the panel and what we've been able to discuss. It's been a great kind of, I think, showcase of different areas where Well, I mean, just the uniqueness of experience, yet sometimes the similarities of what we've all gone through in the gaming space has been really cool to highlight. And everyone has contributed something that I think has been very valuable for people listening in. I think before we go into this, I want to really get to, Maya's comment here, because I think this is a good one to maybe end on and wrap up. What advice do you have for Black kids that come from low socioeconomic backgrounds and or don't have familial support? And anyone is open to take this. Um, and I think it's a great question, Maya.
I have some I could say about this. Uh, it's okay to start with like not the best equipment. Like I feel like everyone's saying like, oh, I gotta have the best camera, the best mic, like all this like 9 yards things. Like it's okay if you start off, just using your phone or like people will find you. You may not think so. Like I mean, I started off with I kind of took my dad's meeting mic. It was like a little headset thing. I sounded really bad, but people still found me and I still grew. And like with that growth, I was able to improve. And I mean, it didn't happen overnight. And there was also a time one summer I didn't have internet and I would go to the library to like upload my stuff and, take advantage of the free resources that you're able to get to, like at the library. If you're able to find maybe something off like Marketplace, like people give away little meeting mics or stuff like that. Um, just like don't worry about getting the best of the best because you don't need the best of the best right
Mhm.
away when you're beginning. You can start with anything and get somewhere.
Right.
hmm
I mean, if you have a phone, right? I mean, if
Yeah,
you have a
a
phone,
phone, your
it could be
PlayStation, anything.
sky's the limit. There's free recording apps for like, I mean, if you're a PC gamer, it should be, OBS. If you're a PS4 Xbox gamer, I don't know what the recording software is, but I guarantee there's a free way to record your gameplay. Um,
hmm
the way I got started was I just said, I'm playing anyways. This is like a perfect excuse. Now I can like tell people I'm working when I spend 2 hours after work, playing Smite, and no one can get mad at me. It's like I think this was a really smart idea by myself. I'm like very happy about it, but then I would upload those videos. I'd have an intention with how I was playing. And I think now, like with TikTok, we've been talking about it, but I've been involved doing a lot of TikToks lately, and it's just so simple. 20 seconds of work, a cool idea, funny thing can literally turn into going viral or getting thousands of views and getting an initial audience. And that audience might take you, just those committed few might take you to every platform that you need to go to grow and have enough for the algorithm to start picking up if you have good content.
Yeah.
So it can be that easy. I think we have another TikTok can change your life. Look at, yeah, TikTok can change your life. Um, my question, another question is, how do I find more Black creators to network with? I think getting involved in programs, being open to getting out of your comfort zone. I know that I got reached out to do a lot of people, a lot YouTube Black. Basically, I reached out. I got reached out. This is just a story that maybe is motivating. Like I typically don't collab with anyone. I have a very specific reason why. The reason is if I get a lot of content that starts going great because of collabs, then people are just loving that I'm having those collabs. And if I stop having them, I feel like that's content that could go away because of someone else. So I like collabs, but I don't try to plan on them from a content strategy. So I just wasn't involved in a lot of other creators or Black creators specifically. Um, but I started doing these YouTube Black events. And for me, it was a stretch because I didn't know anybody. I wasn't really like I'm a gamer and there's not a lot of actually gamers in the Black space on YouTube and in a big, big way in terms of those hundreds of thousands and millions of viewers. And so I was
Yeah.
getting a lot of them do comedy, a lot of them do different things. And those I felt a little out on the outside. But what was amazing is that I made friends right away. And it was getting out of that comfort zone, which allowed me to look at the way that those communities were interacting with each other differently than I had really thought about. Change my content to be a little bit more accessible in some of those areas and to relate more in some things that I just hadn't been ignoring. And it also definitely, I think, is one of those things that eventually, now that I'm a part of the YouTube Creators Fund for this first inaugural year for YouTube, came back really paying dividends, because YouTube is really actively trying to support Black creators, uplifting each other and also uplifting themselves. And so I think YouTube is a great spot to try to do that this year. But really, the goal that I would say is you can't necessarily say YouTube will do it. When you see an opportunity, take the risk and get out of your comfort zone to make it happen,
Right.
because you don't know what's on
Mhm.
the other side of that that could become a network that turns into a very valuable thing for you.
Yeah, and I just
Mhm.
want to add to that that Twitch is also doing an entire Black History Month initiative
Wow.
called Celebrate Black Brilliance. So they have a pen that it's I guess it's a recommendation shelf where there's an entire list of Black creators. Also, if you click one of their creator Twitch channels, a lot of them are also in the Black History Month 2020 Twitch team. So you'll be able to find just a ton of Black content creators under that team as well. So,
Mhm.
and I'm also a part of this group called Black Girl Gamers, where they
Mm.
have a lot of information, education, sharing resources about Black content creators. So I would try to look at that. Definitely, if you're on Twitch regularly, look up the Black History Month Twitch team and try to follow and interact with some of those streamers.
Mhm. Mhm.
I have one last question that I'm going to read, and this is going to wrap up the stream. And I'd love everyone to get an answer to this, and then I'll be closing us out. Looking back on your career paths, is there anything you do differently now? And do you still think traditional education is worth it? Let's start with you, Krista.
Well, for the first question, uh, I don't think I think I would try to manage my time better and like kind of be easier on myself in terms of like taking days off, and like not being so scared to take days off. Cause I definitely like have that mentality like, oh, if I take a day off, they're gonna forget about me and like, you know, I'm gonna lose all the momentum I have going. But if they really enjoy you, which they probably do, they're not going to just disappear overnight. There'll still be people there to support you, and it's okay to take time off, even when you're working towards a goal. There's going to be another day, the next day, and nothing's going to leave. So it's okay to give yourself some rest. And in terms of traditional education, I mean, I'm happy to have my degree because, like, if anything ever happens, I have a backup plan. But at the same time, do I use it? No. Could I save $20,000? Yeah. I think I would have went a different route to getting my education, more of like doing community college first and then going to a university, just to save my money because it's expensive. So just you consider your options. Education is different for everybody. Some people like it, some people don't. Do what's best for you.
Yeah.
All right, Khalil.
Yeah, I think to the first question, what I would do differently goes to something we touched on in the beginning, of just about self-care, about
Mhm.
just broader perspective, about family and the things that are important, and really pouring into yourself before you're pouring into others. I think I've been most effective at my job when I've had that perspective and haven't been trying to burn the midnight oil. And so I think that's something that's really shaped over time. But I'm seeing how that's shaped and affected my professional career. To the point of education, I definitely say I got a lot. Oftentimes, when I say I majored in political science, the next question is, well, what are you doing in this industry, and how does it translate? And I think I can formulate a story that makes it compelling, but at the same time, I look back at broader lessons. It's about some of the relationships I made. I think it's about the skill of writing. I think was incredibly important.
Mm.
That is something that translates a lot. I think there were a lot of experiences throughout just my education where you're preparing to do a project, and I think that mirrors a lot of the things we're doing now, where you're meeting
Yeah.
deadlines, you're working on a team and group project. So I say I got a lot out of my experience. To Chris's point, I think education is different for other people, but I think the idea of learning
Mm.
should always be a goal, just throughout your life and in pursuit of a career. And I think that there's different ways that you can learn, especially in today's world where there's access to virtual education. But I do think continuing to learn and challenge yourself and learning about emerging industries, specifically this industry, is well worth it.
As far as I go, I don't think I would do necessarily anything different on my career path. To Khalil's point, a lot of the connections I've made is because of where I like where I went to school and the experiences I've had because of schooling.
Mm,
So I don't think I would do anything different in terms of career, but just always keep myself open and look at like what brings me joy and happiness and everything like that. But in terms of schooling, I think school is still worth it, in all honesty. I don't feel like maybe for every single degree, but I do think if you're in school and maybe you're just taking some, I don't want to point out any specific major, but pick up a technical skill. I think that's really important. So whether that's programming, editing, something that is transferable across industries, across everything. Learn how to do that, because even if it doesn't work out in gaming or content creation or wherever, you can land on your feet in some area, in some facet. And also, I do think there's a lot of opportunity for those that want to be in like the medical field and also work in gaming, because mental health and physical well-being is so important in this space. And we're seeing that more and more often with injuries and things like that, and just taking care of you. So I think that's really important still, and that's still something that people need to learn. And also, law and legal. I think you see agents coming up more, representation for players and representation for talent. So
mm.
I think all that's very important, and I think school to an extent is still worth it.
This has been great, and I'm gonna round it out as we are close to closing it. You guys have had some great questions. I agree with everything you said, especially the technical skill. I always preach to people, if you just mastered every application in the Adobe suite, you'd have a job almost anywhere. If you could do it well enough and better than the next guy or girl. I mean, that's the truth. If I need a thumbnail and I need a graphic designer and your quality is better, I mean, you could teach yourself that. And I think that's where we are going into the information age where everything is available and it's up to you to kind of hone in on what you want. It can be overwhelming, but it also can be empowering to know that you have a choice to really create skills where a lot of times before that was limited as to who had money, who had access. And that's just not where we're at. As far as my education, I really value, my education, and I think it has to do with my content. I always say content's a journey of self-discovery, and I also think that you are your content. And so, everything I've learned and all my experiences are heavily used in everything that I make, and I think that's kind of what makes it unique. And I relate to something that I've done in my career before owning that as much that did set me back, and I think just took some time. I don't think I had to take this long to get to where I'm at. I think that part of it, though, is that I grew up in a world where I didn't really live this way, but I think I just felt that I needed to be excellent to know everyone knew I could be excellent or worthwhile. I think, there's a little bit of being black growing up in a white, all whites, kind of community that was part of it. Like, I think there's also part of it being an athlete wanting to succeed. I think there's elements to my story that was like, you got to be like this super crazy great person and then you're worthy, right? Versus like some people just walk into the room assuming they're worthy and they don't do anything. I mean, they're just being themselves. They could have done much less than you and think they're much more like deserving of this thing. And I think in content, what I've done is I've tried to be so unique sometimes that it's just not been accessible. I've tried to be like, all right, I'm gonna make this crazy idea. And the thing that actually started me going viral, my first viral video took me 20 minutes to make. I did it before work. I was getting dressed. I don't even know if I had pants on. I honestly don't know if I had pants on. And my point is that not to throw images out there. I'm just saying my point is that it's not that hard. I need to really sometimes just do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And I don't have to prove myself with my content. Me, who I am, is enough proof as it is. And take stuff that works and be accessible and reach more people.
Mhm.
And then who I am will be more effective, right? I think I'd rather have a million people get one of my okay videos than make the best video of my life and nobody sees it. And I think,
Yeah.
those million people will still be impacted by what I'm bringing to the world. Even if it's not 100%, it's still going to be enough. So that's my advice. That's what I would change. And that's what I'm actively working on throughout, my content career as it is. But thank you all so much for being a part of this panel. Thank you all for showing up. Khalil, Jordan, Krista. I think there's going to be hopefully someone in the chat showing some links, some social links where people can find you, where they can connect. It might be on the next episode of one of these. It might be down the road. It might be with some GenG stuff. But we really appreciate everybody coming through. My name is Raynday. Again, we all hope to see you soon and hope you appreciated this and have a very fantastic rest of your week. That's it from us. As always, never give up, never stop gaming. We will see you all next time.